What's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathaning and I'm happy to see you guys all again. Welcome back to our channel, and in this video I'll be giving you guys a rundown of the latest trending builds, most notably the ones from the Korean server. We'll cover new builds for all 5 roles, so make sure you stay tuned. And like always, I highly suggest you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content like this. That being covered, let's go ahead and start the video. Going from top to bottom, we'll start by talking about solo lane Rengar. The top lane has always had some room for him, given that the brushes allow him to access his powerful passive. Patch 12.6 changed everything for him. He received massive changes to help him perform more consistently. One change that was minor on paper was the fact that his Q now resets on turrets. This is especially powerful as a top laner. With leads, he's able to push a ton of pressure on his lane opponent and also pose as a threatening split pusher. His popularity has risen significantly, and I'm here to show you an effective top lane build that we've been seeing players using. For runes, take Lethal Tempo, Overheal, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Bone Plating, Revitalize, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. Rengar's raw damage output is impressive, and by taking Lethal Tempo, you'll continue to deal high amounts of damage even after the initial Percy combo. For items, build Kraken Slayer, Defensive Boots, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards or the Collector, and Guardian Angel. With this build, you're going to be dealing insane 1v1 and teamfight damage. Also, the heavy damage build will allow you to quickly take turrets down, meaning enemies can't ignore you if you decide to split push. Ideally, however, you'll want to push in a side lane and look for picks with their ultimate and insane burst damage. Next on the list is the return of top lane Fizz. It's been a long time since we've seen him up here, but he's making his presence known with a bruiser build that grants him both high damage and plenty of durability to back him up. The combination of damage, mobility, and tankiness is once again proving to be a huge nuisance for most players fighting Fizz. Due to his innate safety because of his E, you can substitute Summoner Flash for Ignite for healing reduction and kill pressure. For runes, take Grasp of the Undying, Demolish, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, Presence of Mind, Alacrity, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. For his items, you should build Frostfire Gauntlet, Ionian Boots, Demonic Embrace, Blade of the Rune King, Zanya's Hourglass, and Rabadon's Death Cap. That's it for the top lane builds. Like we always do for these videos, we'll also put them back up on the screen one more time for you all. Take a look at them and save them if you need to. With the top lane covered, let's hop into the jungle next. Shaco has been seen with a rather odd build out of the Korean server. You definitely shouldn't underestimate it just because it's a bit weird. As one of the strongest solo queue champions, there's definitely plenty of room for experimentation. We've seen AP Shaco builds become dominant during certain patches, but right now, we're seeing more of a tank Shaco. He still deals some hefty amount of damage though, so don't underestimate him. For runes, take Hail of Blades, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Treasure Hunter, Triumph, Alacrity, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Health. These aggressive runes heavily contribute to his damage output, which will certainly end up lower than a traditional AD Assassin build. For his items, build Turbo Chem Tank, Berserker's Greaves, Blade of the Rune King, Death's Dance, Randuin Zoman, and Maw of Malmortius. As you can see, there's a ton of defensive stats that this build provides, but combined with his runes and Ignite, Shaco still has plenty of kill pressure when he manages to get onto the backline. With Turbo Chem Tank and Randuin Zoman, he's able to stick onto his targets much more easily. Although he won't be able to make his enemies disappear as quickly, Shaco still outputs enough damage to force his opponents to play around his teamfighting presence. If you're trying to learn how to hard carry games or learn how to counterplay strong solo queue champions like Shaco, make sure you contact the coach at ProGuides.com. Our incredible, well-trained staff can help you improve your gameplay, so make sure you check out our website. Our next jungle build is for Shyvana. This is a well-rounded bruiser build that surprisingly has her build AD rather than AP. We're starting to see more and more throwbacks, but this build encourages Shyvana players to get in and play aggressively with their basic attacks. Rather than relying heavily on landing her E, you'll also find that this build is typically easier to play around as missing her skill shots won't have as much of an impact. For runes, take Press the Attack, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Cosmic Insight, Magical Footwear, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Health. For items, build Bombi's Cinder, Defensive Boots, Blade of the Rune King, and then finish off with Sunfire Aegis. Afterwards, you'll finish the build with Death's Dance, Sarek's Gauge, and Wit's End. There's plenty of on-hit damage included in this build, and the bonus attack speed that you build synergizes really well with your Q. That's it for the jungle, and we'll put those builds up one more time for you all. Hopefully, you got the look that you needed because we're headed into the mid lane next. Beginning with the top lane, we have a new build for Talon. The biggest adjustment to take note of is the use of Summoner Ghost over Flash. With the added mobility and lower cooldown, Talon is able to pose a much larger threat while also able to roam around during teamfights. As a result of his bonus movement speed, he's going to be much harder to escape from, especially when his target doesn't have Flash available. When chasing overextended enemies, Ghost is usually going to prove to be more valuable than Flash as it'll allow Talon to cover more distance. Combined with Yumu's Ghostblade and you'll have a ton of movement speed. For runes, take Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Sudden Impact, Treasure Hunter, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. His items are Yumu's Ghostblade, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Eclipse, Death's Dance, Maw of Malmortius, and Sorella's Grudge. Throwing in Eclipse and Yumu's, Talon gains insane mobility as a result of this build. The next mid laner that we have for you is actually Taric. While he's unpopular, he's a solid pick when paired with an engaged jungler. His crowd control paired with some jungle assistance applies an immense amount of pressure against his opponents, especially if they're not running Summoner Cleanse. For runes, run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Revitalize, Last Stand, and Second Wind or Bone Plating, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. His items are Frozen Heart, Defensive Boots, Sunfire Aegis, Winter's Approach, Force of Nature or Gargoyle, and Anathema's Chains. As he's going to be played in the solo lane, Taric will also have access to more income. With the extra durability from the items, he's better able to take advantage of Conqueror to boost his impact during extended teamfights. Before moving forward, let me also ask you our question of the day. What champion do you think are going to be the most frustrating to play against right now? For me, it's Heimerdinger. It's hard to play aggressively against him because of his turrets, and as a result, he's able to slowly poke you down with his missiles. I'll be talking more about him later on into this video, but make sure you let me know about your answers in the comments down below. That wraps up the mid lane, so make sure you take a look at the screen for a quick recap. Now let's run through the bottom lane. For a marksman build, let's talk about Twitch. You might be surprised to hear, but players are once again going AP Twitch. Well, sort of. While this build starts off with plenty of crit chance and AD, it eventually builds some AP to incorporate a solid spread of mixed damage. Nashor's Tooth high on hit damage and bonus attack speed significantly boosts Twitch's damage output. While it may seem odd, the extra AP adds on a significant amount of true damage to his poison. For runes, take Hail of Blades, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ultimate Hunter, Presence of Mind, Legend Bloodline, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. His items are Kraken Slayer, Berserker's Greaves, Rune's Hurricane, Infinity Edge, Nashor's Tooth, and Rabadon's Deathcap. Next is the build for support Lysandra. This build focuses on Lysandra acting as an initiator for her team, while also contributing a notable amount of damage. For runes, run Aftershock, Font of Life, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, Manaflow Band, Transcendence, Double Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. Her items are Spell Thief's Edge, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Everfrost, Zanya's Hourglass, Anathema's Chains, and Morellonomicon. While Anathema's Chains may not seem to fit with the rest of the build, it synergizes extremely well with Lysandra's massive crowd control. Since it lowers the Nemesis tenacity, Lysandra is able to lock down priority targets for even longer. Morellonomicon works well with her because of how wide her AoE damage spreads. To wrap up the video, we have a bottom lane duo to talk about. This lane is absolutely destroying solo queue, and also bringing with it a new era of suffering. Heimerdinger and Seraphine, when combined together, are a dominant lane with an unsufferable amount of poke damage. Laning against Heimerdinger can already be frustrating. He's able to poke opponents down with his missiles, while his turrets can deter enemies from ever taking aggressive fights. With Seraphine by his side, he has access to sustain, crowd control, and even some extra poke damage. Both of these champions don't need to heavily commit to poke down their enemies either. When left untouched like me during all of quarantine, they're able to bully their bottom lane opponents and eventually become ungankable. They're a pretty safe lane, so to successfully pick up a takedown, they'll need to be overextended, or the enemy team will have to commit everything in order to succeed. For Heimerdinger's rune, take Arcane Comet, Manaflow Band, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, Perfect Timing, Cosmic Insight, Double Adaptive Force, and Health. His items are Everfrost, Sorcerer's Shoes, Zanya's Hourglass, Rabadon's Deathcap, Void Staff, and Demonic Embrace. Seraphine's runes are Summon Airy, Manaflow Band, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, Cheap Shot, Ultimate Hunter, Double Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. Her items are going to be Spell Thief's Edge, Everfrost, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Staff of Flowing Water, Kentic Putrefire, and Shadow Flame. That's a lot of builds, so make sure you take a look one last time on the screen for our recap of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the latest Korean builds on patch 12.7. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments down below, and also check out the description for a link to join our Discord community. Take care everybody, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.